Church History Hidden and Distorted. Episode 2, Meet the Smith's Children. Welcome to the Hidden and Distorted History of the Church series, where we will be looking at the historical aspects of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also known as the Mormons. In this series, I will try and inform those unaware of the true facts of Mormon history. Last week, we took a quick look at Joseph Smith Sr. and his wife, Lucy Mack Smith. This week, we will take a look at some of the background of the children of Joseph Sr. and Lucy. I am starting with the earliest years of the Smith family and working my way up in order of historical events. But to know the Smiths and their mindset, we need to know who and what they were like before the world knew them in whole. Some siblings I will go over a lot more than others, mainly due to their historical importance, and some do not factor into issues with the church itself or conduct unbecoming of members. Part 1. Who was Alvin Smith? Alvin was the oldest of the Smith children, and as stated in the first video on the Smith family, he took control of the Smith family farm in proxy of his father, who was unable to fulfill his duties to the family. LDS authors James Allen and Glenn Leonard stated in their book, The Story of the Latter-day Saints, that during his youth, Smith worked as a carpenter's helper to assist the Smith family in saving up sufficient funds to make a down payment on a farm in Manchester Township, south of Palmyra, New York. Smith also assisted his father in clearing timber, planting wheat, and tapping maple trees for the purpose of making maple sugar. The statement from Allen and Leonard contradicts that of what we were told by Richard Bushman. Alvin may have taken the lead because his discouraged father could not. Alvin had co-signed the articles for the land purchase in 1821, suggesting he was serving as auxiliary family head. Joseph, worn down by setbacks, may have partially abdicated or failed to undertake family leadership. Alvin was involved in many treasure digs alongside his father and brother Joseph Jr., also being a deep believer in the occult magical practices. There are many accounts from friends and neighbors about Alvin's and Smith Jr.'s exploits. Before Alvin's death, Joseph claimed to have the vision of Moroni and was instructed that he and Alvin would be the ones to collect the claimed golden plates 1 year later. Alvin had fallen ill before the year was out by a few months, was given calomel ball with mercury inside, which led to his death. The angel frog, depending on the story, was obviously wrong on Alvin being with Joseph Jr. to retrieve the supposed plates. Biographer Fawn M. Brody wrote that the Smith family heard a rumor that Alvin's body had been exhumed and dissected. Fearing it to be true, the elder Smith uncovered the grave on September 25, 1824, and inspected the corpse. Following the exhumation, Joseph Smith Sr. printed the following in the local newspaper on September 29, 1824. To the public, whereas reports have been industriously put in circulation that my son Alvin had been removed from the place of his interment and dissected, which reports are peculiarly calculated to harrow up the mind of a parent and deeply wound the feelings of relations. Therefore, for the purpose of ascertaining the truth of such reports, I, with some of my neighbors this morning, repaired to the grave, and removing the earth, found the body, which had not been disturbed. This method is taken for the purpose of satisfying the minds of those who may have heard the report, and of informing those who have put it in circulation that it is earnestly requested they would desist therefrom. In Joseph Smith, The Making of a Prophet, historian Dan Vogel notes that Joseph Sr.'s explanation for disinterring Alvin's body is questionable, because one should have been able to determine if the grave had been disturbed without exhuming the body. It seems probable, therefore, that Joseph Sr. himself may have been the source of the rumor, that the story was a ruse to exhume Alvin's body for its use in attempting to get the gold plates. Alvin was as much of a huckster as his father and brother Joseph Jr. were, and went to his grave known as a treasure hunter. Part 2. Who was Hiram Smith? Hiram was born in Tunbridge, Vermont, while the family has a short stay living there in 1800. Between the ages of 12 and 15, Hiram briefly attended Moore's Charity School on the campus of Dartmouth College, while his family lived in nearby Lebanon, New Hampshire. This would be the same college his uncle John Smith taught at. The same John Smith who created the theology department there, as stated in the first video of this series. This education could have assisted in Joseph Smith Jr. coming up with ideas towards the Book of Mormon, as their uncle John Smith was the author of Hebrew Grammar, published in 1803. Hiram was a member of the local Masonic order, alongside his father, which I forgot to mention in the previous video. Hiram joined the Masons in the 1820s, but we do not know what year he or his father joined. Most of the accounts I found concerning Hiram Smith come from the church history and are pro-LDS sources, where bias is found all over. Hiram may not have been accused of the treasure digging his father and his brothers Alvin and Joseph Jr. were accused of, but he endorsed Smith Jr.'s endeavors in plural marriage, as he first married Jerusha Barden in 1826, but she passed away in 1837, giving birth. He went on to marry Mary Fielding, and then her sister, Mercy Fielding Thompson, whose husband had passed away. He then proceeded to marry a Catherine Phillips, making 3 wives in total, and he was sealed to all 3. Now this was at a time when Joseph Jr. and others were not being open to the members of the church about plural marriage and their partaking in it. Hiram was murdered in Carthage jail by a mob, or it is claimed. There has come to light evidence that the Smith brothers were actually killed by insiders, not the mob, but that is for another episode. Hiram Smith spawned many leaders within the church, including his grandson Joseph Fielding Smith, who would be president of the LDS Church from 1970 to 1972. In 2000, it was estimated that Smith had over 31,000 living descendants from his 4 marriages. Part 3, Joseph Smith Jr. I'm going to save Joseph's earlier life to its own episode, as there is a lot to cover before he became known for his claims towards the Book of Mormon and can easily fill a whole episode on its own. Part 4, who was Samuel H. Smith? Samuel was the younger brother of Joseph Smith Jr. and a somewhat important part of the church's story. He lived with Joseph and Emma during at least part of the supposed translation of the Book of Mormon. As well, he was one of the first missionaries for the church. One of the little-known facts about Samuel is that he and Oliver Cowdery stopped by the Whitmer homestead for the evening on their way to Smith Jr.'s home in Harmony. Why is this important? Because we are led to believe that the Smiths never met the Whitmers until May 1829, and we know that is not correct. Joseph himself may have not met the Whitmers, but Samuel did, and the LDS Church omits this information. In 1832, Samuel and Orson Hyde started to preach the Book of Mormon in Ohio around a Campbellite movement. It did not go so well, more so for the fact that many claimed that the Book of Mormon sounded a lot like a story by one Solomon Spaulding. They encountered this claim again while in Conad, Ohio. We will not get into the Spaulding theory here. I only bring it up because the LDS Church once again avoids bringing these encounters up openly amongst its members. Part 5. Who was Catherine Smith Salisbury? Catherine did not do much history-wise, but it is notable to bring up that when her brothers died, she followed her sister's suit and did not follow Brigham Young to Salt Lake City, but joined with the RLDS Church instead. Part 6. Who was William Smith? The relationship between Smith and his older brother Joseph was at times quite rocky. William is believed to have physically fought with or attempted to fight with Joseph on more than one occasion. In October 1835, a fistfight between the two was narrowly averted. Weeks later, in December, there was an altercation between the two at a debating school being held in their father's home, and it is said that at the time Joseph died, he was still suffering the physical effects of the beating that he received. After the 1844 murders of Joseph and Hiram Smith, William Smith claimed leadership of the Latter-day Saints and attracted a small number of followers. Most church members accepted Brigham Young as rightful leader of the church, and Smith was later affiliated with the Strangite and Reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. William Smith had a very checkered past, and it is well worth doing some of your own research into him, as there is too much to really cover here for the basis of this episode. The siblings I have left out had generally not done much in the way of the LDS Church that would concern most people. They either held positions in the church where they did not incriminate themselves, and the sisters for the most part did not follow Young to Utah, rejecting him as the head of the church and joining the RLDS, now known as the Community of Christ Church. Next episode, we will take a look at the earlier life of Joseph Smith Jr. and learn a little about him before his claim of the first vision. Please watch for future videos, and thank you so kindly for watching. This is the Ex-Mormon Informant signing off for the day.